I am excited about Matthew chapter 9. It is an awesome scripture filled with amazing insights to the believer. And as saints today, let's listen to what the Spirit is saying to us. Let's listen to the teachings of Yeshua to us, the Jewish Messiah to us. And I'm excited I'm just going to walk through Matthew chapter 9 and pick up several lessons that I believe are important for Africa in this time. I believe that if Africa holds on to this word, we can begin to see and do that which he wants us. And the title of my message was Leaving to Enter. You have to leave to enter. In the world, they say, if you keep on doing what you've been doing and expect different results, that is foolishness. You have to change. You have to transform. You have to change everything around you and begin to move in a particular direction. And we see the coming of the Messiah in the New Testament is he begins to speak a message challenging people to leave their old ways and enter into the new ways that he had brought. And I believe Matthew chapter 9 is a word for us, Africa, to leave certain things and begin to enter into a particular place. In verse 1, we see that he enters into a ship and he comes into his own city of Capernaum. And as he's coming, there are people who are leaving their home. There are people who are leaving their village and come to the Messiah with a man who is paralyzed. And he accepts him. Messiah accepts him. What an exciting place to be. First of all, it says he comes to his own city. And I believe Africa in this season, Messiah is saying, this is my own people. This is my own continent. And he's coming into his own continent in this particular time with a different message that we're getting from the yeshiva, with a different message that we're getting from our different teachers. The Messiah has come. And the challenge he is challenging us with is, it's time to leave. Because that's what he says to the paralyzed man. And behold, they brought him a man sick of palsy. He was paralyzed. And for me, it's a picture of some of the situations we see in Africa where we are paralyzed. We are paralyzed with fear. We are paralyzed with poverty. We are paralyzed with sickness. We are paralyzed with economies that are constantly going down. We are paralyzed with some bad decisions made by some bad leaders. We are paralyzed. And in this hour, like Zimbabwe, we are going through a 90-day of prayer. We are bringing the nation to the Messiah. And most of us are preaching this word Sunday in, Sunday out. We are bringing the people to Messiah. And we are expectant that we have left our home on a stretcher. How they heard that the Messiah was coming in, I have no idea. But they brought a stretcher. As the Messiah comes in, they are also coming in. As they leave, they enter into the presence of the Messiah. They enter into the voice of the Messiah. They enter into the place of influence from the Messiah. And as they enter into their place, they have no doubt that their friend will be healed. Africa, we should not doubt. We should not doubt what the Messiah is doing in this season. We should not doubt what the Messiah is doing in this season. That is, he brings the word as we revisit the path of the Torah, as we begin to read it and begin to understand the secret places, the prophetic mission, chazon that God has got for us. Let us have uttermost faith that it is time for a shift. Let us enter with an expectation to begin to leave another place and enter into another place. Be of good cheer is what the Messiah says to him. Be of good cheer, I believe he's saying to Africa. Be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. In other words, celebrate the goodness of Messiah. Celebrate the salvation that Messiah has brought. Celebrate the gifting that Messiah has brought. How has he brought it? He has brought so many people to minister to us. He has brought so many resources for us to begin to begin to feast on. The fact that the man was brought on a bed indicated that his paralysis was severe. They could have carried him, but he was in severe trouble. And I believe that Africa is in a place like that. We feel there's severe challenges. You talk of the COVID-19. It has stopped everything. It has caused things to be paralyzed in a sense. And Messiah is saying, be of good cheer. And he says, be of good cheer, your sins have been forgiven. In other words, he's saying, the place where you are at, something went wrong somewhere. And I believe in Africa, we are where we are today because certain things have gone wrong. Certain things haven't been done right. Certain sicknesses have brought us to the place where we are. Certain sins, certain unfortunate incidents have brought us to the place where we are at. But like the paralyzed Messiah, Yeshua says, be of good cheer. Yeshua is saying, be of good cheer. So in this season, and this is a word of comfort. It is a word of compassion. He does not come with a judgmental voice. He does not come with a voice saying there's a finality to your sin, but he says, be of good cheer. For me, it reflects compassion. It reflects empathy. It reflects a caring heart and a caring Messiah. So Africa, hear this. The Messiah cares for you. The Messiah loves you. The Messiah cherishes you. The Messiah wants to be in relationship with you in this season. Understand that. And behold, certain of the scribes expressed that this can't be. So as the word is being brought, guess what? There will be those who would stand against the doing of Messiah. There will be those who will speak against the word and the voice of Messiah in your life, in your family's life, in your nation's life, in your community's life. There will be those who say this is contrary to the teaching of old. There will be those who say no, things can't be that way, because they are not recognizing the Messiah. That's what he says in the word. When Messiah spoke what he spoke, they didn't recognize that it was the Christ. And so as we begin to walk in confidence and begin to confirm what the Messiah said to us, and as we begin to pay heed, as our countenance begins to change, guess what? There will be some people who will look at us and say, who are you following? Who said you should do that? Who said you could go that way? Let us be rest assured and stand with the Messiah. Let us be rest assured and stand with the Messiah, because he is holy. He is deity. He sits on the right hand of the Father. He has the power to forgive, and he has the power to heal. He has the power to transform. He has the power to recalibrate. He has the power to realign. He has the power to change and bring about positivity in everything that we do, because we learn that he starts from the positive and ends in the positive. How he leaves, he enters. And he is challenging us to do the same, to leave the path of complaining, to leave the path of not understanding, to leave the path of fear, to leave the path of paralysis, to leave the path of sickness, and accept him and enter into his fullness and enter into his perfection and enter into his healing and his goodness and his mercy and his goodness that he has prepared for us. Let us do that. Let us leave the place of uncertainty. Let us leave the place of poverty and sickness, the place of economic decadence. Let us leave the place of political ruin, Africa, and begin to enter into the presence of the Messiah and allow the Messiah to speak a word that will take us out of our paralysis. The next phase of my message, now that an encounter with Messiah changes everything, because the man leaves, he gets up, he carries his mat, and he begins to move. Imagine the testament that he carried. Imagine the good news he carried to his village, to his home, as they saw him carrying his bed, coming home in full health. That is the expectation that we have as Africa, that we will carry our mat. We will begin to walk on our own feet and begin to do things enabled by God, that he has enabled us to do in this season. In verse 9, we see the calling of Matthew. And the calling of Matthew is a powerful teaching. That is, the Messiah continues to walk around Capernaum. He is looking for those that he wants to work with. He is looking for those that he wants to train, to empower. He is looking for those that he wants to send out. He is looking for those that will listen and begin to run after him. And Matthew did not say, wait. He did not say, I'm going to sort out things at home. As soon as he was called, guess what? He started following. That urgency, that quickness to response. My pastor always says your response determines your destiny. And that is so true. When you respond quickly, urgently, and you begin to apply yourself to matters with great urgency, the Messiah will enable you to do the supernatural. There was a connection between the Messiah and Matthew. Immediately, he followed the Messiah. And he followed the Messiah not on his terms, but on the terms of the Messiah. Because he did not negotiate. What am I following for? What are the benefits? What am I going to gain from it? He followed because he made a decision. Africa, is time to make a decision to follow the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah. It is time to follow the Jewish Messiah. And we need to do it on his terms, not on our terms. And that takes leaving. We are leaving our terms behind. We are leaving our beliefs behind. We are leaving our religion behind. And we are saying we are ready to follow you, Messiah. We are ready to move in your ways. We are ready to get a hold of your teaching, of your instruction, of the manner of teachings that you have for us. And we want to follow you in that path. This will lead us to the righteousness that the Messiah has prepared for us. In verse 12, he says, but when Jesus heard that he said unto them, they who be whole need no physician, but they who are sick. Because then he explains the mission that he came to. Those who were not well. In Africa, we are in that place where we are not well. And the Messiah has come for us. He has come for us in this hour. The Messiah has come for us. And he's calling us like he called Matthew. He's calling you. He's calling me like he called Matthew. And he's expecting that immediate response, that urgent response to begin to follow him, so that he can bring transformation to our lives. He can bring healing to our lives. And as our lives are transformed and healed, guess what? We go back to our communities and we take back that healing. We take back that ministry. We take back that goodness and mercy that he has given to us. And in that, we become powerful. As we move on to the next place, so we have left, Messiah has met and has changed and transformed the life of a man. Paralysis has been taken away. Africa, paralysis is being taken away. Secondly, he is calling us by name. Matthew was called by name, and he's expecting an immediate response, because Matthew immediately responded and started following Messiah on his terms. On the terms of the Messiah. Not only, he didn't say, I need a contract. He didn't say, can I sign here a contract? He says, what are the perks? What are the benefits? He just said, I will follow. And that's what Messiah is looking for. Are we going to respond in a similar manner? That I will follow. Are we going to respond in the fashion that Matthew responded? He didn't ask for a paycheck. He didn't ask for a blanket. He didn't ask for a house. He didn't ask for a car. He just says, what I will follow. In other words, you're saying, I will give my life. I will sacrifice my life to ensure that this mission goes forward, to be your disciple, to learn from you. This is the kind of expectation the Messiah has got upon us. As Messiah moves around with his disciples, in verse 11, the disciples of John who had been following the teachings of John came and say, how come your disciples are not fasting? Then came unto him the disciples of John, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples fast not? They would fast maybe minimum twice a week. And they saw the disciples were not fasting, and Christ responds in a most amazing way. He says, while the bridegroom is around, they don't need to fast. But he says a time will come when they have to fast. So as Messiah comes to us, Africa, As he walks with us, we may find it easy a little bit, but he's constantly telling us a time is coming when we need to apply ourselves diligently, when we have to fast. Fasting speaks of denying self, leaving and entering, leaving and entering. Fasting speaks of leaving a particular lifestyle and assuming a new lifestyle. It is time for us, Africa, to assume a new lifestyle where we fast, where we pray with intentionality, where we do the works of the ministry for which we have been ordained for by Christ, where we give of ourselves, where we die to self and begin to move in the path and in the manner in which the Messiah is calling us. And he challenges them by saying in verse 16, no man puts a piece of new cloth unto an old garment. For that which is put in to fill it up takes from the garment, and the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles will break, and the wine runs out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine in new bottles, and both are preserved. Leaving to enter. New wine in new bottles. New cloth on new cloth. You cannot put the new into the old. That speaks of us leaving the old, entering into the new, so that the new can be poured into us, Africa. So let us leave the old. Let us leave the past. Let us forget about history. Let us forget about the former glory. Let us forget about the former flames of what happened in the past and begin to be expectant of the new that he is pouring out into our lives today. The Messiah is pouring into us the new. As we sit under the teaching of our rabbis, we begin to see the revelation of the word coming to us alive. In the yeshiva, we are constantly seeing the transition and the teaching to bring understanding of the Jewish Messiah. There is a new being poured into us. It can't be contained in the old. We've got to leave and enter into the new in order to receive the new wine that the Messiah is pouring into our lives. And as we jump to verse 18, we begin to see him doing lots of miracles. While he spoke these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him and say, my daughter is not well. Come and lay your hand upon her, and she will live. And Jesus arose and followed him. And he brings a healing. So I'm saying, as we leave the old and enter into the new, where the new is being poured into us, guess what? We will begin. It says the miracles will become bread for us. The supernatural will become bread for us. But it takes leaving and entering. If we stay in the past, we can't expect the supernatural to become our bread. We can't expect the supernatural to become the bread that we eat on a daily basis. But as we walk with the Messiah, we leave the past, we enter into the new, we leave the past, the new is poured into us, and guess what? We begin to walk in the supernatural of God. It's going to be a season, an era of the supernatural of God. And why would he do the supernatural? Listen, the supernatural was being done to show empathy, to show compassion, to show the goodness of God, to show the power of God. The poor were set free. The sick were made well. The incarcerated were loved and set free. And that is what the new begins to manifest in us, in our church, in our community. We begin to liberate those who need to be liberated. We begin to be generous with what we have. We begin to share with all that are around us. We begin to open our homes to those who do not have a roof over their head. We begin to share our clothes. We begin to share our food and our finances and our resources. Guess what? We have left and we have entered into the new, and that is what the Messiah wants us to do. And as we do that, guess what? We become the miracle bearers for others. Because those who did not expect to have a roof over their head suddenly have a roof and a bed to sleep on. Those who didn't have clothes suddenly have clothes to wear. Those who didn't have food suddenly have food to eat. Guess what they will say in their prayers? A miracle has happened. A miracle has happened. And that is what the Messiah is charging us to do. Next, on the blind will begin to see. The blind who have been blinded by false teachings, who have been blinded by past pain and past hurt, by past difficulty, they will begin to see. He will come and he will touch their eyes, and they will begin to see. How will he touch their eyes? As he speaks, they will begin to hear. They will touch their eyes by the word that he says to them. He will touch their eyes by holding their hand and beginning to show them that this is the way, walk ye in this way. This is the path, walk in this path, move towards this direction. That's how he will open the eyes. Africa, your eyes will be opened. Messiah is ready to reach out and touch your eyes so that you can see the new direction that he wants you to move in and to walk in. These men came to him in faith, totally blind. We want to see. That should be our attitude, Africa. We want to see. We want to see the ways of the Messiah. We want to see the path the Messiah is carving for us. We want to see the direction where he's taking us. But it takes us to approach the Messiah and give ourselves unto him in humility and allow him to do an act of power in our lives. And when our eyes are open, guess what? We are able to celebrate. We are able to speak. We are able to testify. We are able to say, I was blind, but now I can see. And nobody can take away your testimony. Nobody can steal your testimony, Africa. The dumb man was healed. He could not speak, but he was speaking. He was given a voice. In Africa, we need to be given a voice. And we are being given a voice in this hour. We are being given a voice. The voiceless shall hear the power that comes from our voice. And as we speak the word shall go out and begin to minister to those who can't hear, and they'll begin to hear. To those who can't see, and they'll begin to see. To those who are lost, and they'll begin to find direction. We are being given a voice. Africa, you're being given a voice. Verse 32 says, as they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with the devil. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spoke, and the multitude marveled, saying, it has never been seen in Israel. It has never been seen in Africa. As we begin to speak the word, and as the word that we speak begins to liberate, and as the word that we speak begins to bring life, many will say, this has never been seen before. We are in that season, Africa. I believe that the Messiah is leading us towards that season where we begin to do things that people would not believe are happening in Africa. Where when they hear the story of Africa, they will say, it can't be. It cannot be. It ought not to be. But it will be, because the Messiah has done it and he's doing it. The Messiah has done it and he's doing it. In verse 35, it says, and Jesus went about all the cities and all the villages. What was he doing? Teaching, explaining the truth. We have seen Rabbi Shapira coming over to Africa, going into the villages, explaining the truth. We are celebrating the Night of the Bride, which has been translated in so many languages, including Shona. What is it doing? Explaining the truth. We come to these services, the Shabbat services. We enter into different teachings. We go into the yeshiva. Recently, a scholarship for 200 has been offered in Africa. Why? To explain the truth. The Messiah is in our midst. Yeshua Messiah is in our midst, and he is explaining the truth. He is explaining the truth. Let our ears hear. And not only was he explaining, but he was proclaiming the truth as well. So he is explaining the truth and proclaiming the truth. We are being given opportunity, platforms. We are being given, doors are being opened so that we can proclaim the truth and teach the truth. And this truth that we are teaching is saying the gospel of the kingdom is here. The good news is here, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. Yeshua can do it. You think of any sickness, and sickness is not just your medical sickness. It can be a state of mind. It can be a place, a loss of values, a loss of culture, a loss of respect for one another. That is a sickness. When society no longer regards the things that God has decided and God has implemented for it, that is a sickness. When people turn away from doing the things that the Messiah was teaching, that is a sickness. When people no longer look to the Father's teaching, the Father's provision, the Father's ways, that is a sickness. And the Messiah is in our midst to get rid of the sicknesses. And those sicknesses will be gotten rid of by our proclamation of the truth and by our teaching of the truth, by our spreading of the truth. We will go in the highways and the byways and we will heal many. We will teach many, and we will release many from bondage. And lastly, how will this happen? In verse 36, he says, but when he saw the multitude, he was moved with compassion. The Messiah was moved with compassion because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. This is very humbling. This is a burden. But when he saw the multitude, verse 36 of Matthew chapter 9, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then he said to his Talmidim, the harvest is truly plenteous, but the laborers are few. Verse 38 says, pray, therefore, the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. How can you be sent if you have not left? We have to leave our comfort zone. We have to leave our old ways. We have to leave our place of settlement and enter into the place where the Lord of the harvest can send us out and transform communities, nations, and the world. Christ is the Lord. Yeshua is the Jewish Messiah. And he is sending forth laborers. And those laborers are you and I. Matthew 9 is bringing to us a whole new dimension of liberation. But when you've been liberated, you are sent forth to also liberate. So the process of leaving and entering continues, leaving and entering. We leave and enter. And as we leave and enter, we are leading many to leave and enter into the destiny that Yeshua has got for Africa. Africa, it's time to leave and it's time to enter. We are entering into his glory. We are entering into his mission. We are entering into his fulfillment. We are entering into his power. We are entering into his new glory for us that he has set for us. This is the time. Let us leave so that we enter into the newness of Christ. Amen and amen. God bless you, saints.